Good evening, everyone. Good evening, corruption.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we are live. Uh, so you resolved your microphone problem. Nice. Okay, so how was your weekend? Have you seen what fights have you seen? Or would you like to proceed with the intro as usual? Do however you like, sir.
Haven't seen, haven't seen, just seen a little bit of highlights of a few of the fights, but nothing, nothing in detail.
Okay, so maybe in that case we can keep this episode shorter because
Yeah,
we both have a very busy weekend. So on my side, I had a lot of people over here for the weekend, so I didn't have enough of time to watch all the fights neither. But I was able to catch only AJ Pulev live. Then today I also watched Verdejo against Nakatani, and what a
yeah,
nice fight it was. And I saw the short fight that was in between Jesse Pam Rodriguez and Juarez, and also saw the first 5 rounds of Shakur Stevenson's fight.
I didn't see.
Well, all I can tell you is that the fight was, let's say, more exciting, a bit more exciting than the usual Shakur's fight. But yeah, I was on the other hand, I was not able to watch those fights in details and analyze them at all. So
All right. Yeah, yeah. It's been one of those weeks. If you recall, I mentioned that I had to leave on business. I only returned today, but we'll start off with the card yesterday from the United Kingdom World Heavyweight Championship unification with Anthony Joshua defending his WBO, IBF, WBO heavyweight championship titles against Kubrat Pulev, mandatory challenger. I think may have been mandatory for the IBF. Um, we didn't cover this fight in any sort of detail last week because, from our perspective, it was a totally irrelevant, insignificant fight. A 39-year-old Bulgarian heavyweight with a less either a 50% knockout ratio or even less than that, whose best punch is a jab. Um, Coming into the United Kingdom to challenge Joshua, having declined a previous um, challenge. Pretty bizarre incident. He somehow manufactured an injury, and Carlos Tercam stepped in. So Kulev had a second opportunity. Um, Now, for a fighter who his best punch is his jab, doesn't have any significant knockout power, even up against a fighter who has a glass chin in Anthony Joshua, the probability of him knocking out the champion to win the championship belts was minimal. On the basis of his momentum coming into the fight, having given a lethargic performance against Rydell Booker, who recently got demolished by Filip Hrgovic. And I've always emphasized the significance of momentum coming into fights, certainly significant fights. And Pulev hasn't exemplified any brilliance under top rank recently. A fighter who's used to opulence, um, having married a celebrity who's openly bisexual, and both of them boasting about having orgies, etc. So clearly, his mind has not been in boxing, and can you blame him? Um, so he came into this fight, and I'm surprised that Joshua labored to a ninth round victory. I saw small elements of the fight, so I let the official shed in-depth analysis. But from what I saw was a Pulev who had no athletic ability, pretty much stood in front of Joshua, no ability to exploit any angles or show agility to try and, given his deficiencies in height and reach. But what I saw was it was a Joshua whose long range deficiencies come back and haunt him. Um, I've often talked about his lack of ability at fighting at long range, and that's exactly what I saw. Extremely telegraphed, the same muscle memory combinations that he tends to throw. No creativity. Pulev was able to block. It doesn't really have a robust guard, but he was able to parry punches both with his left hand and his right hand. Was able to land the jab, but underutilized any power punches. So how on earth is he going to cause any debilitating damage to Joshua just by throwing a jab? Had no ability to throw a left hook. And when he did, he was getting countered. Got countered for the first knockdown from what I saw. Joshua was able to land uppercuts at will. So from watching not the full fight, but certain portions of the fight, it just looked like a horrible fight, aesthetically, technically. Two early knockdowns. Pulev recovered, had an incremental success during the middle stages from what I can see, but didn't buzz Joshua with any power punches. I'm very curious to see the punch stats or official to advise me, but I didn't see any combination punching from Pulev. I hardly saw any right hands thrown in vain with any sort of trajectory or torque or power or intent. Hence the reason why we were lackluster about this fight. It just seemed like Pulev very happy to cash out, receive his few millions or whatever, and now retire, go back into, probably turn into a Bulgarian porno star, given the open relationship he has with his wife. Good luck to him. Official, you want to? Do you have the inclination to shed more light on this fight?
Let me see. I don't know what could I tell more about this fight exactly. Listening to your observations, well, I pretty much share. I felt the same way, pretty much the same way about this fight. Now, first of all, uh, just a few minutes ago, Eldog on Twitter shared a tweet from Michael Benson saying WBO president Paco Valcarcel has said that they already granted two exceptions to Anthony Joshua for Ruiz, the second Ruiz fight, and for Pulev. So it indicates that they won't be willing to do another for the Tyson Fury fight. If so, AJ must fight Alexander Usyk or vacate unless Usyk agrees otherwise. So for start, that's a good news. I like it. I enjoyed it. This fight itself, I didn't enjoy it at all. I think it was ugly, just like you said. And I mean, anytime Pulev would step in close after throwing a punch or after missing with a punch with the right hand, usually Anthony Joshua would just grab him, clinch him. And so it was very, very, very boring fight and a very ugly fight. I wasn't enjoying it at all. I mean, I don't know what to say. Look, Pulev, I'm not sure. Like I told you, I was not really paying attention, nor did I have enough of time to analyze those fights. So this fight neither. But Pulev was active only with his lead hand, of course, with his jab, here and there, trying to sneak in some very short left hook off the jab. And in the second stage of the fight, in the second half of the fight, he started trying to catch AJ with one-twos, and to be honest, those one-twos sent pretty quick to me. But Joshua was able, to his credit, to duck down and make Pulev miss. Now, I do think that, just like yourself, I think that Pulev was winning some of the rounds, but it was a clear AJ fight. Now, just like you said, Joshua has problems with fighting at long range, and even his uppercuts, his right uppercuts that he was catching Pulev with, even those mid-range uppercuts, longer uppercuts, they were very telegraphed, but somehow they were very often catching Pulev, but he was also missing with a lot of them. But I do think that some other fighter would be able to see those punches and Pulev anyways. Another thing that you mentioned, 39 years old, having better things to do in his life than boxing. He was not very, I mean, I do think he was trying to win, but there was no real threat for AJ. Uh, Even Pulev's best at this stage of his career, at 39 years old, being, I would say, rather well prepared for this fight. Otherwise, in my opinion, he wouldn't be able to last, what was that, 10 rounds or 9. I think the stoppage happened in the 10th round, if I'm not wrong. But uh, if he was not that well prepared, he would go out much earlier. But it was funny to see him how happy he was after the fight. And I mean, I was watching this either Spanish or Mexican transmission, and the commentators in Spanish were saying that even them were saying he, of course, he's happy. He earned 14 million euros, but I'm not sure if it was 40 million euros for Pulev, which would seem to me as an extremely large sum. Maybe they were talking about AJ, but I'm not sure. Anyways, I'm sure that Pulev was able to obtain a hefty sum for this fight, and that's why he's happy. He can retire and enjoy his life and whatever he's doing in his life. But yeah, AJ, I mean, still he seems very robotic. I'm not saying that he's a bad fighter, but it's just that this heavyweight division, no matter how much some of the people would like to say it is exciting, uh, except for a very few fighters, it's not a good division. So AJ fighting anyone below top 5, 6, or 7, we pretty much know the outcome. And Pulev definitely isn't in top 10 of today's heavyweights. So we knew for that reason that AJ would not have a lot of problems in this fight. But I'm trying to think about from the technical standpoint what I was able to see. I mean, Pulev was just like he always does. He was keeping that lead hand far in front of him, trying to sneak in short jabs. And to his credit, at one point, I think it was in the middle rounds, fifth or sixth round, something like that. I saw him catching and wobbling AJ with the jab, a pretty similar one that Povetkin caught him with in the first or the second round of their fight. And he was trying to hook off the jab, sneaking in short hooks, but it was, well, pretty much ineffective. Um, Now, before I let you go on and speak, because at the moment I cannot recall of the technical details that I saw in the fight. I just want to give shout out to Eldog, Duck, to Shep, but also to what's his name, Timmy Nealon, and also JD from Twitter. Yeah, so go on corruption. I hope I'll be able to recall more details about this one, but pretty much that's it.
You know what you were saying about Pulev now, with somebody who doesn't have a massively expansive punch arsenal, doesn't there's no intrigue in the combinations he's going to throw. That's the point. Is he even going to throw a combination? It may just simply be a 1-2. I don't see no doubling up of the jab from a defensive standpoint because he was standing in front of him, given his age and his lack of agility. I saw his head and his and 30% top body on the center line all the time. Hence, Joshua was able to land telegraphed. I saw one sequence where he landed 3 or 4 uppercuts in a row, and Pulev's upper body and his head didn't even oscillate off the line or even any side to side movement. It's like he's just standing there in the trance. It's almost like this intrinsic effect that happens to all of Wilder's opponents as well. They just stand in front of Wilder with their hands down, just inviting him to knock him out, and that's what it looked to me from a speculative point of view, and just I saw. Hence the reason why I made no effort to try and even watch this fight. The outcome was as predictable. The only thing I would have anticipated is Joshua, rather than boxing a little bit cautiously from the outside. Hence, the demons from the first Ruiz fight are clearly still there. You know, he's very protective of his jaw because, and this is the thing, official. What I wanted to on Friday for one of the workouts when I was away on business, I received a flash about one of their open workouts or press conference. I couldn't remember what it was, so on my phone, I saw it briefly, and in the message box, all I said was, Anthony Joshua has more glass in his chin than Queen Elizabeth's crystal chandelier. And within 10 seconds, Sky Sports had blocked me.
No shit.
Yeah, within 10 seconds, they had blocked me. So I thought, well, fuck you, Sky Sports, you know. Funny thing with the truth in it, it's harder to absorb than lies. And well, maybe I was trolling a little bit, but I think there's a lot of reality in those words. But Sky Sports clearly didn't want anything to do with that, and hence they didn't even block me. I was curious to see have they blocked me for 10 seconds, but they just blocked me completely from the channel.
Fuck.
So fuck it, you know. And hence, you know, the audacity of Sky in the pandemic to actually increase the pay-per-view for UK citizens by an extra £5 or whatever it was. You know, fucking cheek, you know, to put on a garbage pay-per-view like this with who? Lawrence Okoli on the undercard, not even in the World Championship fight, and um, I'm not even sure who else was even on there, but forget it, official. You know, I'm not interested in this garbage. Hopefully, the WBO will will enforce Usyk's mandatory berth. It's been 2 years now, so but I fear that an undisputed or a unification, however you want to look at it, will take precedence over the mandatory, and Usyk will have to wait, and it's probably going to have to be. If it's one fight, then the two of them can have a rematch because a rematch is no, that's not a necessity in the context of a unification taking precedence. So I don't know. Money. I guess will take the central issue, and Joshua and Fury will get their fight. I'm sure Usyk is going to be left holding the bag, unfortunately, maybe waiting for the winner. So a little bit like Jack Catterall, maybe he has an opportunity to fight for undisputed. But my worry is that Tyson Fury won't fight him if he wins, and I expect him to beat Joshua. He's already indicated that he feels that Usyk is not, it's just inconspicuous, just an obscure name. He has no interest. You know, the typical pussy tactics that Tyson Fury has shown all of his career. So just going to be more frustration official. So I've got no more to say on this fight. I haven't seen any of the undercard fight. Not even interested. Uh, Yourself? Or shall we move on?
Yeah, same for me. I was not watching the undercard, but anyways, yeah, you're right. It's not like this fight is something really worth spending our time on. But on the other hand, what I would like to say, maybe we could say just, or maybe even not, because it's nothing. Excuse me, please. We saw nothing new happening. Everything that happened in this fight in between AJ and Pulev, it's not like it's something new to us. We know it already. I was thinking about asking you if this fight changes your opinion on how an eventual fight in between AJ and Usyk would go.
Oh,
But
Usyk absolutely beats Joshua. I have no doubt about it at all.
I
He'll
would
keep
look.
he'll keep that
Sorry,
fight at long range, and he won't be there in front of Joshua for any jabs, right hands. Joshua's already showed that he doesn't have that ability to fight against those fighters who operate a little bit, certainly a southpaw. And I think the way Joshua drops his lead hand as well. His lead hand is unbelievably low. So I can see Usyk having great success with the jab, turning the jab into the right hook, one of his preferred combinations, and then walking Joshua onto a big left hand and then just pivoting off to the right, keeping using typical southpaw triangle theory just to keep Joshua out of the equation. So I've always been convinced that Usyk would beat him, and watching Joshua recently, I'm even more positive.
yeah, that's the same way I feel. I mean, I would really favor Usyk in that fight against Joshua. The thing is, however, the thing is that I would clearly give AJ a solid chance, a real chance of beating him because of that right hand, and he's very good with that right hand. He loves that pull counter that he showed it against Charles Martin now in this fight against Pulev too. It's not anything surprising, and for sure it would be more difficult against Usyk, but Usyk himself is vulnerable to those counter right hands, pull counters, as we already had the opportunity to see. But yeah, no doubt, I would favor Usyk, and I would love the odds for that fight to be largely in AJ's favor, kind of like with what happened with Nakatani and Verdejo. But yeah, look, now speaking about the unification fights and Usyk letting him and Fury fight. Uh, I'm not sure what is going to happen. I kind of think there is a possibility that AJ will have to defend his WBO title against Usyk, but when thinking a bit more about it, yeah, I would say he'll probably drop it. I don't think he I think that he will be looking for that big money fight, and that he knows very well that Usyk is extremely dangerous fight for him. So he'll probably ditch that WBO belt and go into a fight against Fury for a cash out without that belt. And another thing that I agree with you is that Tyson Fury, the way he already talked about Usyk, is clear that he it wouldn't be likely for him to accept that fight against Usyk, which really sucks. And I mean, you know me, how much credit I'm giving to Fury, but it would really be an occasion to shit on him for a great reason. Other than that, what else I wanted to say?
Official, you see AJ's problem with Ruiz on the twofold. It was hand speed and counter punching ability, and with Joshua, when he has success at that short range where he does most destructive damage, he always drops his guard position and his defense just capitulates. And you hear Robert McCracken shouting at him, "Keep your hands up, keep your hands up." He starts
Yeah,
firing his work. So Usyk in that position has the advantage of hand speed. He's a better counter puncher, and I believe defensively he is infinitely better than Anthony Joshua, and he's better. So those poor counters don't really affect Usyk to the extent that they, whereas an orthodox fighter has success with him when they hook round his guard because he doesn't move his defense, he doesn't move his head that much, and he's starting to get a little bit better at doing it because he's got such a high guard, so they tend to neglect that. So sometimes if you hook round the guard, or you can even penetrate the guard, which is tough because he's very strong, there are chances, but he's not going to be there. He'll show his head in his face, but he will move, and I think he can break Joshua down. I think he can take advantage of his defense and his lack of endurance, despite the weight coming down. He doesn't fight in sustained bursts throughout. He doesn't maintain his punch output. Um, you can see he's stuck a little bit into fighting defensively on the back foot, moving laterally and fighting in the middle of the ring. Now, up against Kubrat Pulev, who posed no difficulties in power punching, why not stand in the middle of the ring, command the middle of the ring, and knock him out? But no,
exactly.
he just procrastinated the fight with some pussy ass tactics. Not impressed at all. Where was his formidable punch power official? How comes Pulev was able to get up from an early barrage and, you know, put in 6 rounds, and then later on, you know, to me those last two knockouts looked poor, piss poor. I wasn't convinced that they were, but I've only seen highlights. I just I paused and zoomed in on Kubrat Pulev. To me, they look like flash knockdowns, but what do I know? That's just observations of a part-time fan watching a totally nonsensical fight from a highlight. So
Corruption, just another thing. Yeah, I mean, Usyk. Uh, First of all, that possible fight in between him and AJ, I do really think that even having judges in their pockets, it still wouldn't help AJ or Hearn, simply because the way AJ fights and his combos that you're explaining, you were mentioning, where he opens up from time to time, but once he throws his 3-4 piece combos, he needs 3 rounds to get his stamina back, and we know with Usyk what incredible motor he has. He His activity goes up with as the rounds go on, so his stamina, his endurance is way better than AJ. So I do really think that fight wouldn't even go to scorecards. I mean, possible, but in my opinion, I would say that Usyk probably stops him by accumulation, and not even that. The way he gets tired throughout the fight, in the second half, he may clip him with something he doesn't see and send him straight to canvas, just like he did to Bellew. But one my very last point about AJ is that, see, against Ruiz, it's funny because I was listening the other shows, these last few days, talking about AJ's confidence. See, in my opinion, he's someone who's extremely cocky because in one of his previous fights, AJ, after knocking his opponent or stopping his opponent, well, perhaps it was maybe the Ruiz rematch. I know for sure that Usyk was. In the first row of the fight, watching the fight live, and immediately after the fight, AJ turned towards him and started shooting at him. Um, I don't know, screaming at him, like saying things kind of like "you're next," etc. So I always had this opinion of AJ being extremely cocky, despite him and Eddie Hearn trying to present him as a humble fighter. He's someone really cocky, but it doesn't equate his confidence. Because in the Ruiz fight, in the Ruiz rematch, I saw him, despite for boxing from the outside for the most part, from time to time, just because of his cockiness, he would go in the pocket. And during that rematch, I was rooting for AJ, and I was screaming at him like, "Man, you're an idiot for going stepping into pocket with Ruiz." So it was his cockiness making him from time to time go in the pocket and fight Ruiz in the rematch. But however, despite that, every time he would step in, I saw a clear lack of confidence. He was the way he was behaving in those rare moments where he would step in the pocket in the Ruiz rematch clearly told me that he doesn't have confidence in his chin. Maybe his chin is not even that bad, but he doesn't have confidence in it at all, just by the way he was behaving in the pocket. Because I hope you're all of you are able to understand me, because it's kind of contradictory that he was choosing to go in the pocket from time to time to fight him in the pocket, but it's at the same time he was showing me some real lack of confidence in his chin in those same moments. But that's everything from me about this fight.
All right, enough of this abomination of a pay-per-view card. Let's move over to the United States, and clearly the best fighter who was fighting at the weekend, flyweight division, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, a brilliant young fighter from San Antonio, Texas. Um, I had no idea even I was hoping he would fight on the Tekken card in Japan. But Bob Arum has clearly seen the upside in the fighter and the excitement he brings on each card, so is utilizing him now. That gives me a little bit of worry, because I think Bob Arum is the devil incarnated. But he was up against Cesar Juarez, so they're kind of giving him better and better opposition. You know, Juarez, who I think had a lot of defeats, but I saw a lot of him back in the past. He always showed good endurance. He was getting beaten up in a lot of fights. I think he had 2 championship fights. I saw him against the Filipino Milan Melendo when Melendo was 31, 1 defeat, no defeat, 1 defeat, no draws. He was a very good fighter back then, IBF champion. And Melendo was the comfortable victor, but Juarez showed good resistance in the fight. Had few stages of success as well, so not a bad fighter. I think never been stopped in terms of a physical punch or punishment, but may have been stopped technical reasons. It may have been a cut or something which precipitated the referee to stop the bout. So a new wrinkle with Rodriguez to see whether he could dispose of somebody with a bit of fortitude in the ring, and Rodriguez coming off a knockout last time and looked even better in this fight from what I could see. Crazy combinations of body punches and uppercuts, changing hands, landing those uppercuts and body punches. But in this fight, what I could see a little bit official, he was prepared to stay in range a little bit more. And this is the key. Sometimes you've got to take a punch to be in position so you can land your own punch, which is used as a decoy. But sometimes these neolithically incompetent television broadcast people don't really understand it, and they just automatically assume that his defense is lax and he's taking punches, but the punches are not even bothering him. Sometimes you got to allow your opponent to think. It's the art of deception, to think that you're taking punches to give him confidence so that he opens up. So therefore he's defensively in a more vulnerable position, and therefore you can pick your punches. You can actually land punches that are having more effect because your opponent is not expecting those punches. Plus, it gives you a better chance to land counter punches should your opponent be landing punches on you. But it's just the standard boxing interaction that we see. But with Rodriguez, he's very much reminding me of a young Roman Gonzalez with the punch power that he's delivering in the ring. Has really got, not only very good boxing ability, but punching power and combinations as well. And official, he's just continuing to impress. And the danger would be to put him in strong or for a championship title straight away. No doubt Jesse will take it, but I would be a little bit reticent. I think now that he's beating even some of the old guard, I think the next move would put him to why not put him in the ring with a Milan Melendo now, like an ex-world champion, move up that stage to somebody's veteran former world champions to see how he performs against them. I mean, I expect him to dispose of them expeditiously as well. So what was it, a round and a half, 2 rounds? Rodriguez, the momentum and the oppressive way he's disposing of these fighters just continues.
You know what? In fact, Milan Melendo was one of those guys that I went on to watch after finding out your video about the light flyweights. But I do think that even him would be a rather easy work for Jesse Rodriguez at this point. So I wouldn't be mad at him testing himself even against someone who's just slightly a step above Melindo at this point. But yeah, look, so my first impression was that the difference in their sizes. Juarez, I mean, to his credit, Bam Rodriguez wasn't using his size in order to win in this fight, but just visually, I was surprised because of the size of Juarez. Jesse Bam Rodriguez was even looking kind of fat to me, which isn't true. It was just because me seeing him against a smaller fighter in the ring. But yeah, just like you said, he was staying more in the pocket in this fight, and the way he kept his high guard, and he was able to sleep Juarez's left hand and sneak in those extremely short uppercuts, right uppercuts, things like that, left hooks. He showed me this that he's really able to sneak in extremely short punches on the inside, and that he keeps them short on the inside. So I was already able to see him fight at mid-range in the past, or stepping from long range in the past, but I never paid attention to the quality of his punches on the inside, which really impressed me. And the way he was fighting there at that range, me too. I was recalled of Chocolatito Gonzalez in some ways, because he kept that same high guard, which is very hermetical. And yeah, speaking of him and his defense lacking, is not true at all, because of how good that guard is. I was able to see that none of the punches from Juarez was really able to land on him and really hurt him. So it was nothing to worry about. So he did well. He disposed of him. Yeah, I was. Judging by his previous fight, I was expecting him to use his footwork more and box in and out, but he did a really great job on the inside. Uh, and just to point out how good his short punches were in this fight. In fact, at the very last punch that sent Juarez to canvas was that left uppercut after going to the outside angle. But I think that some of the people thought it was the right hand or a jab that he landed before that punch, that they were not able to see. Some of the people were not able to see that he snuck in a left uppercut after switching the angle. So yeah, I really enjoyed this performance and cannot wait to see more of him. Now he's still 20 years old, isn't it?
Yeah.
In that case, well, look, yeah, fighters from those divisions are getting into title fights much earlier. So yeah, I would be okay with him boxing for a title, but in an ideal scenario, I would like him to have a full year from now on of fighting top 10, top 15, somewhere around that range, top 15 level opposition opponents, two or three of them, and then get him a title shot.
Yeah,
That
I think two more fights and then maybe a title shot. I think he can take Felix Alvarado now, but he definitely needs to be put in with somebody with a little bit more punching power, somebody younger who perhaps doesn't have that many defeats on the record, somebody who's not washed up effectively. Um, I'd like to see a pressure fighter, somebody who's going to get him on the back foot as well. But the upside is so good, he's just going to get better. And the other question is weight. From my understanding, this fight may have been at a catch weight or around 110 pounds. So in between junior fly and flyweight. I could be wrong, but it was a surprise addition to the card. I had no idea pre-hand. It's just I'm just reflecting on what I saw just a couple of hours ago. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard 110 pounds being mentioned for his weight. So maybe there was some mutual agreement between the two fighters. So I don't know the situation with Jesse, whether he's having difficulties actually making junior fly, and it maybe fly. He's at that age where he is growing still, but it's only 2 pounds, and I'm sure if it was for a championship fight, he'll have no problems in getting rid of any excess weight and getting back down to 108 pounds. I didn't see him carrying any excess timber on the body. I didn't saw a little bit of fat here and there, but it was minimal body fat. Didn't really see any additional. But I've got to have a good look at the weigh-in anyway. But so weight going forward, I'm not sure. Did you see anything official about the weight and as to where
Hold on. Just give me a second. I'll go to his box track and see it.
Yeah, because ideally, I would much prefer him remaining at junior fly. Nakatani, as L Dog was saying, maybe 100, maybe flyweight 112 pounds. So that may be in the future, and that's a fight that can be made in Japan as well. So um,
Yeah, corruption. You were right. His weight for this fight against Sol Juarez was 110 pounds and a half.
yeah, yeah. What was Juarez's weight? Just out of curiosity.
110.
Okay, fine. So it seems like I was hoping it wouldn't be a case of ill discipline and him being too heavy at 108 and Juarez just agreeing to the fight because he's after a payday now. His career is basically over as as a gatekeeper. So we'll see. Not really one to speculate on that. It's not a big concern at the moment. So we'll move on to um, another real humdinger of a surprise edition on the card, and you got to be argued. This is one of the performances of the year, or definitely a viable contender for that. Masuyoshi Nakatani coming back from a mammoth layoff, something like 17 months, partly in due to a broken eye socket. I'm not sure the extent of any sort of medical procedures that he required. I'm going to have to look into that because I'm very, very curious about that. But a long layoff coming back into the United States as well. His debut was against Teofimo Lopez, and what a performance he gave. Teofimo Lopez, who's, I think, living on borrowed time, immensely overrated, um, survived, claiming all sorts of excuses after the fight about weight and whatever else, weight bullying, but didn't didn't look any didn't look like the undisputed champion in that fight. Um, Nakatani, first fight in the United States, so clearly, a fighter needs time to acclimate, needs time to adjust. He's got to fight in a live fight to experience that, so that he can carry that experience forward. So it's a pretty much a baptism of fire, but he definitely impressed. And Felix Verdejo, the golden child of Puerto Rico, who I said a number of years ago on a different podcast that he would not live up to the expectations. I said at the time when I said to somebody, I gave him an analogy: would he be the next Miguel Cotto or Juan Manuel Lopez? And I said he would be Manuel Lopez. He just didn't have the boxing ability. From what I saw 3 or 4 years ago, was him just missing too many punches. His connect connect rate was atrocious, and he was just loading up punches. And how ironic, a lot of those came to fore in this fight. But under Ishmael Salas, and that's a very interesting one, official. How is it that Ishmael Salas is not able to take charge of the fight in the United Kingdom with Joe Joyce due to some failed COVID test, but he's able to have two fighters on the card back in the United States? Now, if he'd failed any test, then quite clearly he would have been subject to not only quarantine procedures, but he wouldn't be allowed to travel for what, more than 22 days. So seems kind of interesting that he's able to fight or take charge in front of his fighters in the United States. Um, I think that's really a case of Boris the Blade Warren just trying to, as we indicated before, trying to destabilize Joy Joyce as much as he can to try and to try and give his fighter Dubois the best opportunity to win, but it didn't win. Anyway, so Felix Verdejo had been a little bit more active. I think it was his third fight in 2020. Um, But the key aspects was that against Lozado, who he'd lost to, was also a 6 foot fighter, and Nakatani similar sort of dimensions. So I was confident that Nakatani would win the fight. A little bit concerned about his outer ring, the fact that he's not been active recently. So Bob Arum gave Felix Verdejo the best opportunity in the world for redemption, and a very exciting fight, 10-round fight. Nakatani having come back from 2 knockdowns, first one inflicted very early on in the fight. Verdejo with his archetypal combination, he lands jab, straight right hand, good extension, stepping in with the right hand, but Nakatani sort of exacerbating the blow by defensively a little bit lax, a little bit cold, trying to step back, head on the center line. His guard was no defense whatsoever. Took the punch, looked a little bit buzzed up. It was quite a heavy knockdown. First time he'd ever been on the canvas as well. Survived, not only survived, but he came back at the end of the first round as well. So very encouraging he was. Verdejo didn't try and rush in, realized his opponent was still strong, so he went back. I would have liked to have seen him, start hitting the body back then, or even go back to the jab, which he did, because when your fighter is off balance, you want to go back to the jab. So Verdejo showed some good elements of boxing. Nakatani took definitely a few rounds, and he suffered another knockdown as well before he really started staging the comeback. And made a very bold prediction from what I heard about knocking out Verdejo in the 5th or the 6th round. I think the ESPN commentators were almost mocking him for making such a wild prognostication, but this kid ain't fucking around. Started to time Verdejo very well, not only with lead straight right hands from, but what I could see, jab right hands, some body shots as well, some counter punching as well. Not a prodigious puncher in terms of his output. Is looking for good opportunities to land hard shots. Likes to sit down on his punches. Nice stun punches sometimes to the body as well. Really does take fighters who may be susceptible to last a full duration. So he has a knack of just depleting their energy, and we saw Verdejo not only being caught by these punches, but loading up on his punches a little bit too much, and missing. So his punch accuracy, as aforementioned, I think that was definitely having a factor as well in terms of him being extremely gassed, and you could physically see him breathing very heavily after round 5, 6. Nakatani's punches were definitely starting to hurt him, and we saw that later on with 2 knockdowns. I think the second knockdown was the end for Verdejo. Landed some good jabs in between those hard punches to finish Verdejo off, and you've got to say from a long layoff, 2 knockdowns, broken eye socket, to come back and inflict a defeat on Verdejo, desperate for redemption now under Ishmael Shalis. Understand he's got a young family as well, so maybe the penny dropped with him, but a little bit too late. Pretty much has wasted the last few years of his career, where it's a combination of just the sheer weight of expectations being too much and just relying on your natural talent, as we've accentuated many times. It just carries you to a certain degree in professional boxing, but if you don't have the hard work and the dedication and the humbleness to start learning new skills, then your ability will become stagnant and you will be exposed very quickly. And Regrettably for Felix, that has been the case. So what is that? 2 defeats now in the last 4 or 5 fights. Um, Delighted for Nakatani. I think I think Top Rank put him in there for Verdejo to look good and get a notable victory on his record. And they certainly underestimated the resolve, the determination, the toughness. Because Nakatani, he can take some. Verdejo can definitely punch, and he sits down on his punches. Beautiful with his, but with both hands can definitely punch. He's got speed. He's got hand speed combination. He's got so much ability. But this 6 feet lightweight official um, turning into a hell of a fighter for Tekken Promotions.
Yes, definitely, man. Big up to him. Uh, yeah, first of all, a great point that you made about Salas being his coach. I mean, Verdejo's coach. It's, it's really weird what's going on in boxing. Great point. I was not thinking about it. I heard that. Verdejo switched trainers, that he was with a new coach, but I didn't hear it was Salas. So yeah, how the fuck are you able to travel and be allowed to be there uh, at the bubble and with your fighter if you tested positive? You're supposed to get to be quarantined. But yeah, anyways, first of all, yeah, he was getting cut in the at the beginning, but it was not surprising, being that he had such a long layoff, and like you told me in a message earlier today, yeah, it was a case of Babar throwing him straight to straight in with Verdejo after the Lopez fight. And the Lopez fight is funny, yeah. Lopez's excuses for that performance, which at the end I felt like Lopez won that fight 7-5, from what I remember after watching that fight twice. But it was a very tough fight for Lopez. And yeah, his excuses were extremely weak, because it was in reality what I think it was about. It was just a case of a weight bully in Lopez running into an even bigger weight bully. Let's be realistic, because
Yeah,
Nakatani is huge, and it's not surprising for I've been saying this for a long time. Not surprising for the Japanese fighters, extremely for those who are bigger, larger than the weight classes the Japanese fighters excel at, because they have difficulties to find the right sparring partners. So uh, they really know how to cut weight and stay at the lower weight class possible. And with them having difficulties finding the best sparring partners in Japan because of the average size of people there. Uh, yeah, they tend to stack to the low to go as low as possible and drain themselves. But yeah, now about the fight itself, what I saw in that fight from the beginning, Nakatani had the right game plan, as we were able to see at the end. And what I mean by that, it was the pressure, and he was doing some really good job, with his combos. Nakatani, who's although he's kind of stiff and robotic, but I see that he has some good skills, some real ring IQ, because he tries to do the right things. But the thing is, because he can be stiff and telegraph his punches and things like that, he gets caught. And he was aggressive from the beginning. Um, and that's how he wasn't able to time Verdejo's quickness and explosiveness. From the beginning, he was not accustomed to it. Plus, add in his layoff, his very long layoff, 15 or more months, something like that. So yeah, but what a thing that pissed me off, again, nothing surprising, the ESPN commentators, because in that first round, from the moment he got knocked down, which was a huge, a great knockdown, I enjoyed it. But from the moment it happened, he started on beating up Verdejo in that same round. He landed a ton of uppercuts with both hands, down and upstairs, and with his combinations and wiring them up and down, he was setting the punches upstairs with his uppercuts, and then throwing those uppercuts to the body, and then upstairs he was catching him with some very good punches that were all ignored by completely ignored by the ESPN commentators, which really sucked. So I don't know. I mean, I can't. uh, I can't take Bradley anymore. Andrew Ward neither, but Bradley, I mean, I respect that guy. He was an extremely tough fighter, very humble guy, but as a commentator, he's a total shill, a company man.
The worst, official, the worst is that the zone's Brian Kenny or whatever his name is. That guy should be dissolved in hydrochloric acid live on the zone. That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing with commentary. Nobody really knows their roles anymore. I mean, are they play by play? Are they the color commentators? The thing with Brian Kenny, he just seems to flirt and interact with Sergio Mora. It's very perverse and grotesque in not only viewing but listening to these. I don't mind Sergio Mora because he's an ex-boxer, so he adds better insight to any of the other two. But that Brian Kenny, dear God, no, I have no inclination to listen to him anymore. It's just I'm not even going to be watching the zone cards. That's it.
but but
Those two.
but to me personally,
Yeah.
Brian Kenny and Mora are equally terrible, really terrible. I can't stand Mora neither, because he's one of them. He's also one of them, a total shield, probably even worse than Bradley, in my opinion. I don't know. The thing is, not to toot my own horn, but I always prefer to find the stream, a transmission in a language that I don't understand. The thing that I understand a couple of them is not easy, so I'm still forced to listen to those crazy fuckers. But however, despite that, those in Spanish, etc., other languages, they tend to be way more realistic than the ones in the US. It's just plain terrible. I don't know, but yeah. So let me go back to the fight. So the first round for the knockdown, Nakatani was doing really, really well. Second round, I don't recall it, but from what I remember, I think that he was still doing a good job, still being ignored by the commentators. Now, and he was still aggressive, and with the time, and especially in the fourth round, from the fourth round on, he finally started using his footwork and jab and countering with jab, stepping in with a jab, then stepping out, or trying to catch Verdejo's right hand counter. stepping out of range and countering it with the jab, which I really enjoyed. That was something that he was doing against Yofimo as well. That he had success with his jab and footwork combination of those two. So yeah, but from the fourth round on, he, after getting cut with some great counter punches by Verdejo, he stopped being as aggressive and started boxing more. But he had a very good success with his jab, and once he started hurting Verdejo, it turned out to be an extremely good fight. I just simply enjoyed it. I really like this fight, and I'm gonna rewatch it. But other than that, I cannot remember what else I was able to see.
Does anybody, I don't know whether you know or anybody in the chat, I'm just curious to know what the scorecards were. Um, I think the fight ended in the eighth. Was it the eighth official? It was a 10-round fight, so I'm just curious.
It was in the ninth round, and I think that all the scorecards, from what I remember, they were like one scorecard had was giving advantage to Verdejo, 3 point advantage, and the other two were like 6 point advantage, something like that. But let me check it out.
God damn. Yeah, that's not a surprise. Um, two knockdowns, but I think the first round should really have been scored a 10-9, given that Nakatani was more efficient with his punches and he was landing punches both before the knockdown um, and after was landing uppercuts and combinations as well. So that's a tight 10-round, 10-9 round. But the judges are not going to score it like that. So the margins at which they had it seemed to be astronomically wide. So clearly they were trying to fuck him over. So that that gives me even more gratification in my delight for Nakatani. Anytime that Bob Arum has suffered money loss or is consumed with sadness or disappointment, it gives me tremendous joy. So fantastic. Hopefully, you'll give him a seizure next, so you never have to see him again. Um,
Same corruption, same for me. And look, I'm watching at scorecards. So yeah, Team Chudem and Max De Luca had it 78-72 for Verdejo, and Patricia Morse Jarman had it 77-74 for Verdejo too. But it was funny to me because in the mid rounds, when the referee Celestino Ruiz was how do you say it? I'm trying to find the right word. When he was telling Nakatani to pay attention to his body punches, not to punch below the belt. It was like, I mean, from what I was able to see, maybe he was landing low, but it didn't seem to me that way. So it looked to me as if I was playing a Fight Night Champion game story mode, where in the story mode, for anyone playing that game, in the story mode, you have a fight where you're not allowed to throw a body punch because the referee is on your opponent's side, protecting your opponent. So even the clean body punches, he was ruling it as low blows. So all you have to throw is punches to the head. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't seeing the low punches from the low blows from Nakatani, but referee was warning him to keep it up. So yeah, I mean, nothing surprising,
yeah,
judging by
my
how
my
the scorecards were looking.
my only defense to not being Versus the low blows was I only saw the highlights, so I can I can't categorically say whether they were or they were not. But I'll I'll go back and watch the fights. If they were, then we'll call him out on it, but we'll forgive him, given that they were trying to fuck him over. I think it's only fair, official. You know, you've got the judges trying to screw him over, top rank trying to screw him over, so he lands a few low blows. I think that's a quadratic equation for me. There's equal balance on both sides, so it's fully justifiable. So I have no problems with that. Um, Going forward, um, Ver- Felix Verdejo, is at the end of him now? Is he just a high level gatekeeper now?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, one thing is sure. For his sake, I wouldn't expect him to be thrown in the ring with any tough fighter who can take a punch and has a work rate like Nakatani does, because he seems like he cannot take the pressure. I don't know. I mean, some of the things he was doing in the ring, I really enjoyed it, but the angles, the quickness, explosiveness, counter punching, but it was pretty much. I'm trying to find the right word.
See,
Uh,
official for me, I think what led to his demise was, I think his conditioning is still not has not been perfected. We know it's a rehabilitation exercise under Ishmael Salas, and you can see from his physique what I've seen before in compare and contrasting, it is better, but he doesn't have the endurance for a competitive 12 rounds, say a war. If he's exchanging, he doesn't have the endurance and he doesn't have the punch resistance. But the problem with him is that he's got to conserve his energy. He's got to know when to load up and when not to, because his punch accuracy is still not there. He hasn't corrected it in a few years. So I'm not sure whether that is a permanent aberration or whether it's a technical deficiency that he has. Um, Ishmael is one of the best coaches in the world, no doubt about it. You know, he's working with so many great fighters simultaneously at different sort of weights. That's something for him to decode and decipher. Um, but it's not a bad relationship. I saw some of the previous fights Felix had, evidently against much lower quality opposition, but you've got to rebuild his confidence by giving him those fights. He's very much a confidence type of fighter. He thought he was the next great thing in Puerto Rico. So when when that is unfulfilled, then it can have debilitating psychological impacts. Just look at Prince Nassim Hamid. He never recovered from the one defeat he had when he,
exactly.
in his inflated bubble, thought he was the greatest fighter of all time. So when reality set, people react very differently. You know, some in other industries. Well, if you look at Japan in particular, you know that the biggest killer of young men between the age of 20 and 40 is suicide. So um, it's it's a very different cultural psychological system. So we don't know with Verdeo, but um, maybe there's still hope. If I was top rank, I would still persist him. I'd still keep with Ishmael Silas. I would get his conditioning up. That's what he needs to do. Get him in some 12-round fights. You may have to remodel his offense a little bit as well. He's got to fight. Uh, he's he's got to fight economically if he does have stamina deficiencies. But the talent is there. He's got punching power. Nakatani's got a hell of a chin. Obviously, a lot of ring rust, but pretty much flash knockdowns which caught him. But he recovered. But still, you need a bit of power to put him down. And you're right. There are remnants of of a talented boxer there. So we'll see what happens. But with Masayoshi, personally, I would love to see a Teofimo Lopez rematch. I think he'll be better in the rematch. Um, but that is a fight I can see Teofimo Lopez staying the fuck away from. I don't think he wants to get back in the ring with Masayoshi, and I wouldn't blame him. But the first fight was a voluntary. Hopefully, Masayoshi's got some sort of a fringe WBO championship, some ranking points, etc. He's accrued. So if he continues along this path and he can get into a mandatory berth, then force the fights. Um, I'm sure there's enough demand from the boxing public to see a rematch because the first fight was very good and it was a surprise element with Nakatani. But now they've seen that he definitely is the real deal. He's got boxing ability, punch power, a tremendous chin, resolve, heart, determination, all of the components that appeals to us boxing fans. So hopefully that'll gravitate and that'll grow. He's a good fighter to get some support behind. So um, Lopez has a monopoly of the belts at lightweight. So Nakatani can't really do anything. I'm sure Top Rank will now have some sort of promotional rights in promoting him internationally if Tekken don't want to enforce it back in Japan. So not a bad idea. Keep him in the States. The belt's all over here. Makes sense. Give him a Richard Comey. Give him whoever, give him keep him busy with some high level competition. Let him keep climbing the rankings. And if that happens down the line, I'll welcome it. But Lopez, I don't know, he's turned into a bitch ass all of a sudden now. Doesn't really want any rematches with Vasily or Nakatani. He wants, he's fighting George Cannabis or whatever his name is. And then he may fuck off to lightweight. To light welterweight. So hard to say. Official, anything you want to see going forward from Nakatani in terms of a future fight or anything?
Uh, yeah, you know what? I would agree. I would love to see the rematch between him and Lopez. Now, with Lopez, first of all, I'm disappointed that he's not willing to go into a rematch with Lomachenko. And okay, fair enough. The rematch clause wasn't signed, so but I'm really disappointed that he doesn't want to have that rematch. I think it would be a great fight, even way better than the first one. And no reason for him to fight Cambosos instead of Loma. But I would also love to see the Nakatani rematch as well. Now, as far as Nakatani goes, yeah, I could say, yeah, I would agree with you. In fact, why not fight Kame? So they both share the same opponent. In Teofimo, they have some appearances on fairly recent ESPN shows. So they become more known to the public, to the boxing public in the US. So it would be a win-win situation for both not his promoter, but I guess Top Rank and ESPN and Nakatani too. So yeah, why not go and fight co-mate and possibly have I mean, I would love to see a rematch in between him and Teofimo Lopez. And look, while Nakatani I would say so, he would be better than he was the first time against Lopez. But I think Lopez could be too. He has more confidence now, etc. So I think it would be a very nice fight.
What about Nakatani and Jorge Linares?
Oh yeah, that's well. See, that's another fight. Kind of like well, Linares, it would be even better than the Comey fight.
Yeah,
Now, yeah, I would be interested to see that fight. Look, from the technical standpoint, Linares being a sharpshooter, a really nice. In my opinion, he's very talented fighter, but I guess at the end, the Katani would probably stop him, but it would be an amazing mixture of styles. I could see that fight looking kind of like Kodo and Margarito, that style of, and maybe that's not a great comparison because Kodo, he was always a power puncher, while the guy Linares, his punches are more smoother. He's very nice counter puncher, nice combos. So he's not he's not looking to put as much power in his punches. So they're harder to see. Yeah, it would be a very good fight. I would love to see them, even more so than Nakatani versus Comey.
give him or give him Gamboa. Give him Gamboa on the Tekken card in Japan. I'm sure he can fight again in a week.
He destroys Gamboa. I mean, it would be a nice fight for him, to make himself even bigger in the US, for example. So
I
why
thought
not?
give him Tank Davis. I think he beats Tank Davis's ass.
Hey, but you know what? To be honest with you, Tank Davis, he can counter with a lot of power, and Nakatani is giving you. I kind of see that. I would see that fight the similar way, like Nakatani versus Lopez. Although Lopez is more dangerous, because just like Tank, he can counter with a lot of power, but he also has a better endurance, and is even bigger than Gervonta. But I do think Gervonta Davis fighting Nakatani, although it will not happen because Nakatani stays a tough fighter such as him, would be very dangerous for Floyd to put Tank Davis in there with. But yeah, it would be a nice fight as well. But I'm telling you, Tank Davis could hurt him as well because when he's serious, I mean, he can land a great counterpunch. Uh,
I think he's garbage.
Also,
I think you and myself are polar opposites. I think he's technically poor. I think defensively he's got no defense whatsoever. He's upright, no head movement. He's front foot lead happy, very predictable. I think a boxer, somebody who could box and maintain distance and range and not be there in front of him, I think could cause him all sorts of trouble. And somebody who's got power as well, respectable power. Um, but you're right, it's a purely hypothetical fight because Tank Davis now, after one fight, is the pay-per-view star. All of a sudden he dictates he dictates the lightweight division now. He's
yeah.
simultaneously got two regular world championships. Um, man, this is one of the reasons why I'm really on the verge of retiring from boxing. Having to watch garbage like that. Um,
Well, like I told you, corruption. I mean, we should not care about those official governing bodies, boxing governing bodies,
yeah,
the official titles, etc. And even you said the last time we should have our own the coup d'etat of boxing belt because that's exactly the way I'm looking the boxing at, and that's why I'm official scorecard because I'm giving you my official opinion, in my opinion. So I don't give a fuck who officially wins the fight. If
yeah,
I'm saying it differently, uh, there is no reason for me to respect the official record of a fighter that we can look at on Boxtrack or any other site. So
Your official
that,
scorecard. You taught Adelaide Bird everything you need to know about scoring fights.
yeah, exactly. Fuck, it's yeah, it's so terrible. So I clearly understand why you're telling me this. Telling me that you're on the verge of retiring from watching boxing because yeah, because of that it really sucks. But yeah, what I wanted to say about Tank, yeah, it was my first thought about his offensive capabilities, because I do think he can land a good punch, but also defensively, yeah, you're definitely right. He's terrible, and Nakatani, a much longer puncher, fighter like
Official.
Nakatani, could.
You could have given Yuriorkis Gamboa two stiletto high heels to wear, and Tank Davis would have taken 11 rounds still to knock him out. That's
That's also true.
the threshold of his boxing ability. He is awful. Dear God, I'm gonna have to do a video very, very soon about breaking how bad he is. Um, it's amazing the way the boxing public have succumbed to this whole cocoon of nonsensical boxing. With him, which is which is understandable. That side of the boxing periphery are not blessed with any natural intelligence. They tend to gravitate to individuals that have become financially affluent, and there's automatically an admiration for them. Those who break what they feel is systemic, pervasive racism. So those who are millionaires, the whole public are just automatically gravitating to them like flies to shit. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just to me, it's just that whole subservient victim mentality culture, and nah, not for me. Anyway, we'll move away from the depressing division that involves Tank Davis. We look forward to Nakatani going forward. I think he's going to end up as one of the most avoided fighters, a little bit like Estrada when he was operating at flyweight, and even Sergio Martinez when he was around sort of 147, 154, he was getting avoided as well. Couldn't get fights. And we'll move on to the headline card. I had no interest in watching this fight. Official Shakur Stevenson has been gifted world championships. He's gone from fighting a 100-1 underdog for the world championship to a 200-1 underdog in the following fight. And now you're up against Tucker Clary, who was knocked out at featherweight in the first round. So what's the point of fighting him at super featherweight? Did not understand the concept, the rationale behind this fight whatsoever. So haven't seen it. Please give me your thoughts.
Yeah, so like I told you, I only saw the first 4 or 5 rounds. I mean, it was nothing spectacular. Um, what I was able to see is that this fight was a bit more exciting than the usual Shakur Stevenson fight. Uh, there, there was more trading punches than usual. But however, one thing that I clearly saw, him fighting a southpaw in what was his name, Clary, Ken Clary. Um, every time he was going to the body, slapping his hooks to the body, and then trying to go upstairs, he was getting countered by the right southpaw jab of Clary. That was one thing that I saw, but still, it's nothing new because I was already talking in my Shakur Stevenson breakdown video for one of his previous fights, how susceptible he is to counters in the pocket, and sometimes in this fight, I felt like he was when he was stepping in with the jab towards his opponent, towards Clary. So what he was doing throughout this fight, at least for those first 4 or 5 rounds, he would step in with the jab to the body and then throw or double jab, and then throw a left slapping left hook to the body, and then try to go upstairs. Well, when he was stepping in, going to Clary's body, he was overreaching a bit, and there was enough of room to sneak in a counter right hand in between Shakur's lead left hand and that right hook. And yeah, he always. I mean, look, I do rate him highly, his boxing abilities, and he does seem to me as a hard worker, but he's one of those who I just cannot understand how they're always throwing their rear hand, while they're looping the rear hand so much, as if they're not able to throw a straight rear, sorry, rear hand straight, not a lot of straight punches. Kind of same thing with Crawford, especially in the pocket, when well, that's how Crawford gets countered too, and that's why I already described in my previous Shakur Stevenson video. He does tend to do the same thing in the pocket, to open up, and I don't know, it puts him at risk. But I would say that from this fight, I do think that he had, at least during those rounds that I was watching, he had problem with at long range. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's because of his short arm reach or whatever else. But I felt like he could be, in real problem against a fighter who can control the distance and has good straight punches and timing. And of
Yes.
course, Clary, he could not hurt him, but he was landing that right hand. And like I said in my video on Shakur Stevenson on my solo channel, I was talking about how susceptible he was also against the orthodox right hands, counter right hands in the pocket when he opens up. But in this fight, from what I've seen, he had problem at that long range, because I don't know exactly, but I clearly saw that. Uh, I don't know how to describe it because I haven't analyzed the fight really, but he was suffering at long range.
See, official. If let's make the distinction that Shakur is a talented fighter. I mean, I followed him since Rio, since the Rio Olympics when he lost in the final against Rabisio Ramirez, who interestingly was also fighting on this card as well. Um, it's a stark difference to what I saw 4 years ago, to the fighter that he is today. Physically, he's grown, and there has been a lot of acquisition of skills, and he's developed his lead hand a lot better, and he's learning to punch to the body. So, very good. But to make assumptions already about him being the best, the most talented fighter, the way Andre Ward and Tim Bradley are just perpetuating just continuously every telecast that Shakur is fighting on, is that's uh that's such a bold aspersion that I don't think anybody in boxing truly believes, given the level of competition that he's faced. And that is entirely the fault of the matchmakers, because Shakur has already won a world championship, or was gifted a world championship, should I say. You know, if Shakur can fight his girlfriend's brother, then I might say to Bob Arum, can I fight Cherry Kiss for my maiden world championship? To I promise to manhandle her, and I'll abuse and I'll destroy both her holes. Is that perfectly acceptable? And I'm sure Bob will grant me my wish. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. So they've made him automatically into a prospect champion. So now you're going backwards by fighting fighters who are far inferior to what you was fighting before, and what you was fighting before was absolutely diabolical anyway. They were just padded records. Absolutely no one on. Now Tucker Clarity had a little bit of talent, but he was comprehensively outboxed by Kid Galahad, another counter puncher, very decent fighter, awkward, um, but very good technical skills as well. Gave Josh Warrington all sorts of problems as well in a highly controversial decision loss that many felt that Galahad had won. So, and that fight was at 126 pounds. So Clary showed no power at 126, so he was not going to do anything at 130. So if it was an exercise of futility, or an exercise just to acclimate Shakur to southpaws at 130 pounds, then I can understand that. Given that Jamal Horing and Joseph Diaz are incumbent world champions, both of them both southpaws, then okay, you want to prepare for potential challenges against those southpaw champions, then okay. If it's specifically from that point, then I'll accept the fight and give him a pass. But Jojo Diaz and Jamal Herring are very different fighters, and far the levels between Tucker Cleary and the aforementioned is, I think Jojo Diaz is a lot better than Jamal Herring, who I see him being just totally humbled by at by Denis Shafikov, who just played with him and took him out, but he showed a bit better on the Brian McIntyre. So maybe they're looking at the winner of Jamel Herring and Carl Frampton, who I understand are in line to fight at some point next year. But Shakur has also talked about fighting Miguel Berchelt or Oscar Valdez, the winner of that fight. So I'm not sure what path he's looking to proceed, but by his extremely bold words, he's targeting all champions at this division. I respect that. I don't. It's hard to believe given what he's fighting, but fair enough. We'll hold him to those words. They official. It's going to be a massive jump up in class from the Tucker Clearys and fighting, your girlfriend's brother for a world championship, to fighting a Miguel Berchelt, who does have power, significant power, one punch knockout power as well. And your chin, you're just relying on your self-proclaimed defensive proficiency, but better fighters are able to penetrate your guards and able to walk you down, and they're able to take your punches and create their own openings. So that's a completely different proposition. So we'll see. And Jojo Diaz is probably the best technical boxer out of all of the champions. Very exciting fight I like a lot. May not have the punching power, but he's always in exciting fights, and he does have very good punch accuracy, like a Shakur Stevenson, and is very good against southpaws as well. So that's an interesting matchup. So we'll see going forward. Official, any closing words on Shakur, this card, etc.?
Yeah. I have a few words.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, Bob will he would know that you really studied all Cherry Kiss's moves, all of her films for years. So yeah, in my opinion,
Video analysis of the highest caliber.
yeah. Yeah, but Shakur Stevenson, okay, yeah, Jojo Diaz, he's one of my very favorite fighters in that division. I do really enjoy them. Uh, I enjoy his fights. Yeah, he doesn't have a good, extremely good punching power, but he has real skills. Now the problem for him would be probably Shakur's footwork because let's be real, in that possible fight, he would run around the ring and box off the back foot. But unlike Gary Russell, he probably wouldn't have as high punching output as Gary Russell has. So in that regard, it may be an easier fight for Jojo Diaz. And being that, from what I remember, Jojo doesn't have the quickest hand speed, and he kind of tends to be flat-footed. But it would be an interesting fight, anyways. And yeah, I would be looking forward to it. But like you said, it's a big jump in class in between fighting girls in a parking lot and your girlfriend's brother, and then those other belt holders. And yeah, one interesting thing in the chat, a guy. I, I think he was already hating on us in the previous he was already in our chat room in the previous videos, uh, hating on us, but he's mentioning BFTB. It looks like BFTB is a big fan of our channel, so thank you, BFTB. Big up to you. Yeah, he's calling
Official.
us out. Yeah,
Hating on our channel. Any specific reason?
sorry.
Is there? Did he articulate any specific reason for hating on our channel?
Well, this guy is telling me, he was asking me, why did BFTB call out your channel? And I was like, what? Oh, really? And he said your channel comes with no receipt. Also, you're a fangirl who won't debate him. I think it was thrown at me. But first of all, yeah, let me just say a couple of things.
Who's
First
BF?
of all,
Never heard.
so first of all, he's so important in my life that I haven't following his channel at all. I only remember seeing a couple of his videos on the other channels where he was screaming at BT and calling out people. So he doesn't know shit about boxing. He's he's a pussy like the most of LDBC channels.
Oh,
Doesn't
he's one
know
of those
shit.
parasites. Okay.
And yeah, and by the way, I never saw him comment on our channel asking for a debate. So I don't know what he's talking about. Probably hyping himself up.
Exactly. Official. These people are talking about debates. I mean, I come from Oxford. I've been debating professors. So you think against some uneducated cockroach, really think it's going to be a debate? It's going to be a massacre. So I will
Absolutely,
I'll debate all of them simultaneously. You know,
absolutely. It would be like. you would be looking like a Al Heyman's fighter, in fighting bombs, fighting cans.
Yeah. I'll even debate them about the history of the black race if they want and give them an education on that. For, forget those cockroaches. Should all be exterminated. Um,
Absolutely.
we'll move on. I'm not sure if there was any other cards, but
Yeah, sorry for cutting you off. Yeah, in fact, there was a fight that I missed. I forgot to watch it. Uh, First, okay, I wasn't even. I didn't care about Eggington and Theophan, but I wanted to watch Chris Colbert. Excuse me, Chris Colbert was fighting Jaime Arboleda. Now, this Arboleda guy, I never heard of him, never saw his fights, but I was looking forward to see Colbert, but I missed that fight.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of the fights. As I say, I'm curious about Rabise Ramirez, how he's recovering from his first professional defeat. I think he's a little bit more active, getting some wins, 4 or 5 on the trot, which is good to see. So that pretty much concludes the post-fight analysis. Anything else you want to cover, official?
No, if you want, I can just read the fights for the next week.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Because I
nothing
know Tim
special.
Tszyu is fighting during the week. I heard a little bit about his opponent, who may be an ex-rugby league player, or has migrated.
Sorry, sorry, I'm not able to hear you well.
I think Tim Tszyu is fighting during the early part of next week against a domestic showdown against the next rugby league or rugby union, Australia.
I heard.
So I think
I
it's going to
heard.
be a mismatch.
Well, I heard of him fighting too, although I can't see his name, his fight on the list. Maybe they forgot to add it, but yeah. Anyways, I know it was not a big fight, anyways. But the
Yeah,
other fight,
that could be just a domestic pay-per-view, some sort of a cash grab.
yeah. So the next week in the UK, there's Mick Hennessy's card, Peters Richards. I'm not interested at all. Gennady Golovkin fighting Seremeta. I'm not interested
Good.
at all. Then Gilberto Ramirez and Lopez. Michael Hunter fighting Sean Logery. It's on Fight TV in Texas, USA. Michael Hunter, Sean Logery. Then there's also
So Hunter is
Canelo.
fighting on the undercard of Gilberto Ramirez, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
On the undercard. Then there's also Canelo Alvarez, Callum Smith, and Julio Cesar Martinez versus Francisco Rodriguez Jr. And by the way, a fight between Donner and Rodriguez was cancelled because
Yeah,
Donner supposedly tested positive.
yeah, and
And
that's the reason
one-
the official
go on.
scorecard did a tremendous amount of analysis and was looking to sort of pilot a number of the video analysis and provide sort of live vocal narration over them on the show. But unfortunately, um, the fight has been cancelled. I think Emmanuel Rodriguez has a blocked nose, so he's deemed too much of a danger to fight. Um, yeah, I'm sure, one lem sip, bit of hot lemon, and you'll be fine in a couple of hours. But
Yeah.
madness, what is going on?
Yeah, and by the way, the last night I was watching somebody on Twitter shared Donaire's tweet where he did another test and it came out negative. So it's BS.
Premier. And officially, you remember last week I was talking about how the tour, the cricket tour in Australia was cancelled due to,
Yeah,
yeah, I was absolutely right. The players who returned were given, had no such symptoms whatsoever. It was just erroneous tests, which unfortunately has cost, South Africa, my country, and a lot of monies in terms of cancelled matches. So they don't realize the economic ramifications of this this whole erroneous system, and no veracity in any tests. Uh, I don't know. It's become certainly in countries which don't have an economic structure, a socialist economic structure, that they can just switch public sector finances into deficit, and just, whether it's through central banks printing money or private banks, etc., they can just monetize the debt and keep people out of work. But South Africa and other countries doesn't have any such policies, so the repercussions are astronomically so much more severe and punitive, and it costs people their lives, their livelihoods. It's disgusting. You know, I don't see England going back to fulfill their contract. They'd rather just pay fines rather than fulfill it, thinking the danger is just too much. So horrible. Sorry, official, but I digressed.
no problem at all, man. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you and everybody else who's following us uh, on our and the other podcasts knows very well what do I think about these situations. So I I don't even want to go on for too much about it. It just sucks. I don't
But
know what to say.
we've got a pretty packed out card, both domestically, in terms domestic. I mean, not domestically. I mean, from both sides of the Atlantic, in the United Kingdom and the United States. Uh, Unbelievable how the Canelo fight is just suddenly upon us. Beautiful
Yeah,
tactic from Canelo, announcing the fight himself. You know, as we know that in normal circumstances, drug testing only really initiates whenever the fight is announced. But why not? Why not announce it spontaneously when you know you're not going to be tested, or you've had the benefits of no out of competition testing for the last sort of 2 months, which you've been undergoing whatever training and acclimating to whatever weight division. So he's got the Floyd Mayweather playbook, and he's following it step by step. So I've got no interest in that fight. I think Callum Smith, not 3-1 underdog, might have 6 inches in height and reach as a deficiency, but doesn't impress me as a fighter at all. Surprised he's even still campaigning at 168 pounds. Yeah, that's clearly a light heavyweight. Um, Canelo Alvarez is just going to beat him up and knock him out. Um, I'm far more interested in El Rey Martinez and, Gennady Golovkin's comeback.
Yeah, as far as Golovkin goes, uh, well, you know what about Golovkin's fight? The only thing that I'm interested in is trying to see how he's going to look like, but the fight itself, it doesn't interest me at all, to be honest. But yeah, Canelo too. I mean, the guy Smith is gonna be severely trained. He only had 4 weeks of training, and you have to keep in mind that the last week you can't do any real work. There's usually no sparring at all. You're just maintaining the weight, etc. Going just having some light training. So it means 3 weeks. Uh,
It's
a
crazy.
complete shit.
You know, Rocky
Yeah,
Balboa was the champion, but he got dragged to Madison Square Garden. Liam Smith was the champion, and he gets dragged to Texas. Now Callum Smith, champion Ring Magazine, getting dragged to the United States. Sergey Kovalev, the champion, gets dragged to the States. It's extraordinary the hurdles that these fighters have to jump to for him to exert his A side privileges on the fighters. You know, that's what happens when you capitulate to money. Unfortunately, um, so be it. Ah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, is this really what you're going to call a number one pound for pound fighter? Not at all, man. That's a
exactly.
shit show.
They
And now
they
you
would fight
go
them in
on.
their backyard. You know, Usyk takes Givatsky's O and his WBO belt in Poland. Takes Breeders his O and his WBC. So he took Glavaki's WBO, took Breeders his WBC and his O in Latvia. Then um, takes the what was it, the W, what did he take of Murat Gessiev? Was it his W, was it the IBF? Was it the WBA? I can't remember.
Can't remember neither.
Um, might have been the WBA, I think. Yeah, so he takes his WBA and his O in Russia. You know, that's pound for pound. You know what Alvarez is doing. That is a redundant euphemism of some bitch ass A side bullshit that to me warrants no respect whatsoever.
Exactly, man. I mean, how much of that low shit you have to do and still be considered like pound for pound? It tells me who the real casuals are when I see it on Twitter. Like, yeah, but Canelo is my pound for pound number one. You cannot dispute it. I mean, he fought all those guys, but he had to tilt every even the slightest possible thing in his favor. I mean, giving them 3 4 week training camps, not even 4, it's 3 weeks. Like I told you, the last week you don't really train, um, and compare it to what some other fighters are doing. It's simply uncomparable. I mean, Canelo, credit to him, he's a tough fighter, very good chin, very well rounded fighter, has some very good skills. I'm not disputing it, but people are blowing him out of proportions. If he was doing if he was in the same position that some other fighters were in, he would never be called a number one pound for pound. No way at all, man.
Da-
That
David Benavides, with a full training camp behind him, 2 months, beats the shit out of Canelo Alvarez. No question about it in my mind. Artur Beterbiev, if he still chooses to fight at 175 pounds, Beterbiev is not flanked by any injuries and has and has an unimpeded training camp as well. Give him even 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I think he knocks Canelo Alvarez into next week.
He murders him.
Yeah, but Canelo knows that, and that's why he vacated his belt pretty much ASAP.
Yeah, that belt that he got, well, he kept it for the duration of the post-fight interview after Kovalev, and then throw it back because he doesn't want anything to do with Beterbiev, at least not the one that we saw from the Gvozdyk fight. The only way I can see him fighting Beterbiev is at the moment he sees that Arthur is sleeping because of his age, and on top of that, he'll try to make him sign a one-way rehydration clause, a catch weight maybe. That's the only way he would fight Beterbiev. But fighting Beterbiev in a best possible shape before he gets even older, no way.
He would impose a rehydration clause on Beterbiev, saying that Beterbiev can only rehydrate by 1 pound from the weight.
Yeah.
He's not even allowed a glass of water.
Yeah. But you see corruption. I mean, for the Kovalev fight, and I mean, one more time, I'm saying, my prediction was completely off because I was only paying attention to skills, not to what was happening around that fight, before that fight, etc. So I was overlooking some things. Definitely, I'm at fault for it, but you saw that they didn't want to make it public that Kovalev had a one-way rehydration clause. So it wasn't even for both fighters, but only for Kovalev. And they wanted to keep it under the rug until, Kovalev probably leaked, or his team leaked it to whoever the journalist was.
I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to the autobiography of Sergei Kovalev if he lives long enough to write it, because that's going to be a fascinating read.
Yeah.
It'll shed some light on the way they've been trying to stitch him up with all of the apparent misdemeanors and the allegations outside the ring, all of the negotiating interactions with Andre Ward and James Prince and Rock Nation, and a hell of a lot of shit was going on in that fight, and everything to the build up with this fight as well. I think it's going to be a hell of a read. I might even contact Sergey to see if I can even write it for him.
Oh yeah.
Just give me the manuscript, or give me the vocal, give me the overview, and I'll write it even for him. I'd love to do that pro bono, free of charge. I think it'll be great reading. All right, official. So pretty packed out cards. Look forward to it. Julio Cesar Martinez, WBC champion, 112 pounds. The little buzzsaw, one of the most exciting boxers. He's fighting on the Canelo undercard, so there's a little bit of silver lining to the Canelo fight, at least. And Golovkin, IBF mandatory, so I guess he has to fight it if he wants to maintain the belt, has any sort of leverage, because Canelo's going to demand some sort of leverage if that fight ever happens. Maybe it'll be the IBF belt, I don't know. I'm not even sure what's going to happen going forward, but okay, those are the two fights I'll be looking forward to. So we'll be back next week, and we'll give our post-fight breakdowns of all of the aforementioned cards.
By the way, corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for you about our shows for the rest of this year. So it means we'll have how many, 2 or 3 more shows. Uh, 21, 28. Well, we have 2 more shows until the end of this year. And being that on the 31st of December, there's Yoka Tanaka. What do you think? When could we make a breakdown for that fight? Are you? I don't know what's like your oh fuck, sorry. What's your schedule like for the rest of the year, if you're gonna be busy or not? But just throwing the idea at you, if you want for one of those two following shows, two next shows, to do the breakdown for that fight, just
Yeah,
let me know
because
so I can go on.
yeah, as I'm sort of between different countries every week. So this week I've been in Antwerp, Belgium. I have to go back there, um, and I'm gonna have to be a few days in Berlin as well. So it's a little bit early, but I'm gonna have to maybe reschedule some elements. But I'll have a clearer idea by next week.
Okay, okay. Yeah, just let me know so I can know. Well, even if you're busy, I can do it. I can do it solo.
That's a card I'm keen to sort of maximize time and effort to talk about, both in terms of
Yeah,
preview and the post fight, and um, try and cover some of the undercard fights as well. So those cards have always given me considerable, have always derived so much pleasure from watching those cards over the years. So I don't think it's going to be as spectacular as in previous years from the multiple cards, sometimes free cards they used to show between the 2 days. Um, but given the situation at the moment, I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to generate the sort of revenues to put on as many fights. So, but in any case, next week we'll have a better idea, and yeah, we'll we'll try and we'll try and work something out to definitely do to talk about a lot of the work that you've done, which I'm sure you're very keen to disseminate out.
oh yeah.
Okay, so on that note, I would like to thank everybody who joined us for the live YouTube version of the stream. All the usual suspects: Shepherd of Suns, Duck, L Dog, Triple J, um, Elon, um, B Space, Nordic Warrior. Anybody else? If there's anybody else, I apologize, but thank you to everybody. Official. Um, yeah, we'll be back same time next week. Hopefully back at 9 p.m. Central European time. So until then,